welcome to the 6th episode of the Katknits podcast. This is a monthly knitting podcast where I chat about all things knitting, so mainly what I'm working on and anything I've learned in the last month. So this is actually my first episode of 2022, and we're in March. I had originally planned on making one as soon as I finished this sweater, but it just took me a lot longer than I was expecting, as usual. But I'm very excited because, as you can tell, I do have the completed sweater on. Well, almost. I haven't sewed on the buttons or steamed it yet, but that's okay. I'm so happy with how this turned out. So this is one of the Knit Collage sweaters. It was designed by Laurel Gerbitz. I believe that's how you say her name. So she designs patterns for Knit Collage, and then this was part of their fall knit along, which wrapped up a few months ago. But all the videos and all the patterns, you actually have access to those forever. So with each of the knit along patterns, you get like a series. I want to say there was like 30 videos that was associated with this pattern. And those videos were really helpful. I didn't watch them all. I just watched the ones where I was doing a technique that I was nervous about. So I did watch them in detail with the steeking, how to actually do it and how to finish it up as well, like how to stitch down the inside of your garment. So I thought I'd chat a little bit about the sweater since I've got it on and I'm excited about it. The yarn itself is a bulky yarn, and as you can tell, it's color work. And originally this was knit in the round, and then a few weeks ago I ended up steeking it and cutting it to turn it into a cardigan. Some of the things I love about this sweater is just the little things that are in the yarn. So there's these 3 main colors, which are the cloud spun yarns, and those are solids. So like this is my main color here. And then there are these, what are they called? I don't know. But there's like this party pack of 5 that you get. And there are all these yarns that have lots of different, they're called trims woven into them. So things like this orange, the daisies, there's like little blue roses. And that's what I think really kind of gives the sweater a little bit of fun. It reminds me a bit of a little bit boho chic, a little bit 70s, the yarn itself as well. This was my first time steeking a sweater, so that in itself was an adventure. I first watched the videos on how to steek your swatch, and that was super helpful. I had absolutely no issue steeking my swatch. I did it in probably a couple hours and I was confident and sure-footed, and it really gave me more confidence with steeking my sweater. However, the difficulty between steeking my swatch and the sweater was a whole different ballgame. So when steeking, they recommended that you buy a wool that was non-superwash, and the idea behind that is it would felt into your project. So I ended up picking up this wool. It is by the Fiber Co. And, sorry, I'm going to look at the tag here. It's called Cumbria. And I think it's 100%, 90% wool and 10% mohair. I didn't realize there was actually mohair in this. So what you do is you use a crochet hook and you crochet together each arm of 2 stitches. And you do that for one arm of the stitch. So you're kind of putting together 2 stitches on one side, and then for the other arm of that center stitch, you do the same thing with the stitch beside it. So you have 2 crochet hooks that run, like 2 crochet reinforcements that run down the length of your sweater, and then you cut between the 2, and then those crochet hooks kind of like keep that stitch that's now been severed kind of locked into place, which is why like the edge of this steeked swatch, it's very clean, and that's because the crochet reinforcement almost like pulls the stitches. Like, I don't know if you can tell, but there's kind of like these little tiny ends. It pulls them and wraps them around. And then when you sew down the steeked edge, because there's 5 stitches in the steek, so there's 2.5 stitches per side. So I tacked that down by sewing it, and then you sew in all those live ends. And that helps it from becoming unraveled. And then also, since this wool is non-superwash and this is non-superwash as well, it should all felt together. And when I wet blocked my swatch, I did see the felting start to happen. So I do think I'm very confident in the fact that it will felt as I wear it. So the reason why my sweater was so much more difficult to steek than my swatch is just the sheer length of it. And I realized I created this rule for myself where if I did one side of the crochet reinforcement, I had to sleep, and then the next day I would then review my work. And this way I thought I would force myself to slow down, make sure I was going carefully, and kind of almost, I was so excited about it. It made me just take that breath and like have an objective view on my work. And I'm so happy I did that because there were many, many mornings where I woke up and I had to change my work, or I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. And the reason why is because I kept missing stitches along the edge. So it's very important that you crochet reinforced every single stitch. And I kept missing them. And I think it's because, like with this yarn, I don't know if you can tell, but it's very thin in places and then it gets very thick. So what would happen is I'd have a thin stitch hidden beneath a thick stitch and I couldn't find it. And when I say I couldn't find it, I mean I spent nights looking for this hidden missing stitch. So I ended up doing one side, thought it looked good, and then as soon as I got to the top of the second side, I knew I was one stitch off. And that's where the fun began with trying to actually pull out the reinforcement. I'm not sure if it's because there's mohair in this yarn, but it was already felted, or just like the fibers were already locking together. So even just pulling out, oh, there's a siren. Even just pulling out the crochet reinforcement was a task in itself. And then what I ended up doing is I used stitch markers and I'd count up from the bottom and from the top, because then it's, you know, it's easy to count, and I would just lock together the stitches that I thought should definitely go together, and then I could look in sections and kind of review my work. And that was the key to finding those missing stitches. I think if I were to do this again, what I would do is actually count the amount of rows that I should have in my finished garment, which isn't that hard because this yarn is so big and so thick that it's pretty easy to figure out how many stitches there are from the pattern. Use the pattern, not my sweater. And then make sure, put my little stitch markers in, maybe every single 10 stitches, and then I'll know exactly that I've found every single pair of stitch exactly. Because what happened is, after resolving the issue with the one side, I then decided to check my work again on the other, and then I found a missing stitch in that original one that I thought I had done correctly and verified. And that was the stitch that took me days to find. And the reason why is because it was just tucked under. There's these like single rows of color work, and I had a stitch just like tucked under, right underneath that color. But anyways, I learned some things and I had fun the whole time doing it. Just, you know, I love picking up a new project. So yeah, that was great. And then it didn't take any time at all to do the button bands. I've always struggled with picking up stitches for the button band because I find my cardigan, it's already kind of happening here too, but like it doesn't go across equally. It kind of dips down, and I have the same issue at the bottom, except it goes up. So what I did, and I think this did help, is I ended up picking up more stitches in the neck ribbing and in the bottom ribbing, just to give myself more space for it to kind of almost like force it to open more this way so that it wouldn't shrink. But I do think I did bind off just a little bit too tight along the ribbing. I think if I did it a little looser, that would give the stitches again more space to kind of spread out. I haven't steam blocked this yet, so I'm going to steam block it, and I'm hoping I can kind of tug them out. I am super happy. So what they did with all the ribbing, or at least the button bands and the cuffs, is you use multiple yarns to do the ribbing. So here there's actually 3 yarns, and they're all very similar in color, but this one that's closest to the sweater is a little more rainbowy, and then it goes to one of the contrast colors, which is this kind of light brown, and then at the end it's the sparkly yarn that has all these different colors woven into it. And that's something I think I want to do for other sweaters, is actually doing the button band in multiple colors. I just think it adds a lot of fun to the garment. So I was very happy with that. It is, since you're dealing with a bulky yarn and then when you steek it, you actually have a double thickness to the sweater. So it is kind of thick. I am thinking about possibly just like felting in some of this yarn, aka just grabbing one of those felting needles and just poking it, because that really does decrease the thickness of the yarn. But I just have to be careful not to felt the other side, because I want it to look like a hand knitted sweater, which I think it does look like a hand knitted sweater since it's so funky. So there was many times where you had to hold 3 colors all together, and that was a journey in itself. I did find, since I was using such bulkier yarn and thick needles, I was knitting very loosely, but I think that really worked out because I'm happy with the amount of positive ease I have in the sweater. So positive ease means that you're making the sweater bigger than your body. And they recommended in the pattern, I think, only to have a couple inches, but I ended up going up a size because in the models, they had more positive ease that were wearing the sweaters, and I liked that look. So I think I was somewhere with like the 4 to 6 inches of positive ease. So I could have gone down a size, but I wouldn't have finished the way that I liked. And now, I mean, it's March, so it's just kind of, it's good spring sweater and jacket weather. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about it. One thing is I did get the buttons for it, and originally I didn't realize this, but I only got 4, and I have 5 in my button band. But they're these cute little sparkly buttons, again, adding to the kind of whimsical nature of the sweater. I will order another one, but I think for now, I think it's more noticeable to be missing the top one, so I'm just going to put them down like that. I should have read the pattern more closely and realized it was 4 to 5 buttons based on if you're going to do the short or long version of the sweater. So I got to order 1 more button, and I'm in Canada, so I don't even want to know what the shipping is going to be on my $2 button. I think I might wait. I do want to do possibly another project with Knit Collage. I really want to do the Flower Power Cardi. So I might just wait till I buy that and then buy more buttons. But yeah, and I'm pretty excited because I think I actually have enough yarn to make the dog sweater. They have these Knit Collage dog sweaters that you can make with their yarn. So I think I might make one for my dog, and then we can have matching sweaters. Because as you can see, I do have quite a bit of the blue left. So that's exciting. Another Knit Collage project. I'm probably going to wait to do that one before kind of jumping in. Finish up some other projects first. Just put this back. And yeah, I think that was all I kind of wanted to mention about the sweater. I'm really excited to start wearing it. I'm going to be turning 31 in a month or so, so I'm going to wear it for my birthday, I've decided. So yeah. But since it's been almost 2 full months since we last chatted, I do have some other knitting done. I did manage to finish the Curio socks by DreaRenee Knits. So I knit these with Sweet Georgia Tough Love Sock, which is a Vancouver, local to me yarn company. And then it was Chasing Rabbits when I bought it, but it's now called, I wrote this down, it's now called Barker Wool, and that's based in Texas. So these are both sock yarns, and this is also a knit along. So you're supposed to knit these within a weekend, and this was back in November. And lo and behold, it took me a few months. Just like this sweater that should have been done 3 months ago. These should have been done 3 months ago. It was fun though. I'm really happy with how the pattern turned out, and I think I will try again. One of my goals for 2022 is to knit more things for myself. I tend to knit a lot of gifts for other people, but unfortunately, I ended up blocking these socks, and I don't know if you can tell, but they don't fit me at all. They fit my husband, who has a size, I can't remember, like 10 or 11 size foot. They do not fit my size 7 woman's foot. So he's now got another pair of socks, which he's excited about. I'm a little bummed because I think I've made myself 2 pairs of socks, and now I've made him 2 pairs of socks. So clearly I need to knit more. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention is today with the Knit Collage Knit Along, they just released all their spring patterns, and then you can vote on which one you like and then participate in it. So might be worth checking out their website and seeing if you want to participate in their spring knit along. There is a lot more kind of crochet. They have a granny square cardigan, which I thought looked like a lot of fun. That was my first time crocheting, doing the steeking, and at first it was frustrating, but I kind of got the hang of it, and it seems like crochet is very popular right now. So anyways, happy with the socks. I'm trying to think, there's nothing, the pattern itself was pretty self-explanatory. And it was one of those nice patterns where you can zone out, but there's just enough going on that it keeps it interesting, just with the slip stitches and changing yarns. I think that's what I kind of like, that balance of maybe having like a texture in the sock or some sort of color work just to keep it going. Although sometimes I do just love to just like knit, but I did prefer that. So these were fun. I would make this pattern again. And then I finished up 2 Christmas gifts. So as I mentioned, I gave wool for the gift, and then I knit the project afterwards. So I made both my husband and my dad a hat. And I really need to give this to my dad because we're now in March and it's been done for a while and the weather's starting to change. But so the one I did for my dad is Jason's cashmere hat. It's a 1 size pattern. It's free. Both of them are actually free and available online. And I ended up knitting this with a new, I think it's called Barocco. Is that it? Let me check. Barocco vintage yarn, which does have a little bit of acrylic in it. My dad has another hat that he loves that has cables in it and does have some acrylic in it, so I thought this would be a good fit. Also, the nice thing about acrylic is it does hold its shape and is more washable. So I'm hoping both those things kind of make it less of like a delicate hat and something that'll work for him. I did end up doing a tubular cast on rather than the long tail cast on that they recommend. I'm not sure if that was the right call. I don't know if you can tell, maybe in the light, but it does add a little bit of thickness, and it's quite visible actually on the hat. So I'm not sure if I would do that again. To be honest, I think I probably wouldn't. I was originally surprised that neither of the hats had the tubular cast on, but after doing it, I think I kind of know why. So for modifications, I did end up knitting this part a little bit longer just because I did want it to be a bit longer. But otherwise, it was fun. It was really fun to knit. I definitely made mistakes in the cables. I was not counting rows, so I think each section of the cable is a different length. But you can't tell from far away, and I think it still looks great. So I'm really happy with how this turns out, and it fits. And I didn't have to swatch for it, so all around a win. And then this is the Pearl Soho Classic Ribbed Hat, and I made this in the largest size. And I made this in the Fiber Company's Acadia wool, and this wool is super duper soft. So let me see here. It is alpaca, wool, and silk. It's a lot more flimsy though. You can just tell the difference than this wool. Like this wool is much more hardy. This one is just a little more flimsy, a little more delicate. I have no idea how this is going to wash. I wet blocked it and there is no signs of felting, so that's good. But definitely I think this will be more delicate. I really did love the feel of this wool. It's so soft. It's non-superwash, which I think is why it's so soft. I kind of want to try some more non-superwash projects. But I love this yarn so much, I ended up buying some more for a baby sweater that I'm knitting. But this one was also a lot of fun to make. No modifications. I did do, my husband does wear it double wrapped. So he folds the cuff twice. I think because it was a little too long. But again, fit first try. I ended up taking a hat that he loves that was a little too small, and then I just did like maybe 3 inches of ribbing, and then I laid it down next to the hat just to see how it would fit. It has stretched out quite a bit, I think because it is a ribbed hat. I'm sure if we washed it though and it felted, it probably would shrink. Anyways, I'm pretty happy because he loves the hat. He actually wears it, so I know that was successful. And then for my dad, I haven't really given him a chance yet to wear it, so I need to weave in the ends and hand that off. But yeah, both hats were a success, and they were fun to make. Hats and socks, small projects. And last but not least, I've been working on this baby sweater for a friend, and this is, like I said, I fell in love with that Fiber Company wool. I don't know if you can tell, but the last skeins that I've bought have all been the Fiber Company, and this is again Acadia, so that's super soft wool. I was originally planning on not knitting in a very soft wool just because I feel bad. It's for a newborn. I don't know how much time they're going to have to hand wash the sweater. I am going to give them one of those like garment bags, I think, to wash it in. So that way they can kind of throw it in there and then throw it in the washing machine, and I think it should be fine. Here's to hoping. So this is the Carl sweater by petiteknit, and it is actually a bottom-up sweater, and that's my first bottom-up sweater. So you knit this much of the body, and then you do the sleeves, and then you join them all together as you do the decreases, like almost like a raglan style decreases on the two kind of, I don't know what you call those, like mid-shoulder points. And it is, oh, what's the name of this stitch? I want to say saddle stitch. I don't think that's right though. I don't think she actually mentions the stitch in the pattern either. What the name of it is. Smock stitch. So this is a smock stitch pattern, and I love the texture of it. I'm really loving the sweater so far. I think it's super cute. The nice thing too about the sweater is I'd say it's kind of could be it's gender neutral. So I could definitely see myself making a little girl sweater using this pattern, or it works perfectly for a boy sweater. And I chose kind of this cobalt blue. So I just got a few more rounds left before I do the neck ribbing, and then I'll pick up for the button band, and then I need to find buttons for it, of course. And there's these odd little armpit holes where you bind off stitches, so I need to sew those together. I feel like if I were to knit this again, I'm sure there's a way that you could do knit two together for these stitches, like knit two together, and then you don't have to do any binding off. I'm not sure how you would do that, but I feel like it's possible. I'm super happy with the sweater. I think, so petiteknit patterns, they're very beautiful. So this is my second one that I've made from her, but they're definitely not as descriptive. Like they're not, compared to the knit collage sweater. The knit collage sweater really helps to walk you through what's happening line by line. This is kind of a little bit more, will give you the general sense of what you're supposed to do, and then you kind of need to figure it out a little bit. I mean, it does have all the details, but it's not as precise. There is a little bit more room for, I guess, creativity, or yeah, I don't know how to describe it. It's just more kind of, she expects you to kind of figure it out, versus some patterns I find that are like line by line, where they really tell you all the details, exactly what they're expecting you to do. So it won't stop me from buying her patterns, but it is just something to keep in mind if you are more of a beginner knitter looking to try out her patterns. They are maybe just not as descriptive. But I'm loving it. I think it's so cute, and I think it shouldn't be that long before I'm done this sweater. For 2022, I did make a goal of trying not to buy any more yarn. So last year, in 2021, I bought a lot of yarn. Too much, I would say. So I ended up, at the beginning of this year, I went through my stash, and I've got about 2 boxes this big that are filled with yarn. So in 2022, I am going to knit everything that's inside of this box, And then my other box is patterns for future years. I'm actually going to upload a video about how I organize my yarn stash and exactly what is in this box in a little bit. But my idea is I am still allowed to buy new yarn, but any new yarn goes into this box. And at the end of this year, this box has to be done. I think I can't remember how many projects I have in here to finish this year. But I'm feeling good. I've been kind of wrapping up some projects from 2021, and then I have that very cute baby sweater to finish for a friend, which that's okay because I don't have any baby sweater yarn, so that's okay. But I'm kind of excited to see how I do with my goal. I mean, we're already in March, and this is pretty darn full. I'll start going through it maybe every episode to see what's left in there. But my next big project, which I'm excited about, is the Guthrie sweater by Boylan Knitworks. And that is a Fair Isle, which is just 2 strands of yarn held together. I think after knitting this sweater with 3 strands of color held together, I can definitely see the benefits of doing just 2. Because it's a lot faster. You only have 2 hands, so you can have 1 yarn per hand. But yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope everyone has had a good start to the year, and I think it's always a fun time to kind of reflect on what happened last year and then what you want to do this year. I totally encourage you to also maybe go through your yarn stash and find some things that would be excited to knit from there. I know for me, I just don't want my yarn stash to get too big because as much fun as it is to collect the yarn, for me, I really love being able to wear it and to gift it as garments. So that's my plan for this year, is to really try to decrease my yarn stash by 1 whole box, and then next year I'll start to decrease it some more. So yeah. All right, well, happy March and best of luck knitting. See you next time.